Scotland and South Africa, folks. Rugby World Cup 2023. Just finished watching this game this morning here in New Zealand. Crawled out of bed 3:45 in the morning, somewhat willingly, to watch one of the biggest of the pool games, and I wasn't disappointed. It was a pretty interesting game. Had a bit of toing and froing. Not the highest scoring affair, but felt like a proper test match you can get your teeth into. We'll go through some key events and stats, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how the game went. First thoughts was really, South Africa pretty dominant up front, which is sometimes just kind of par for the course, isn't it? You expect that in some areas. But for the Scots, man, their attack was really blunt. And you got to give a lot of credit to the South Africans for that. But, yeah, uncharacteristic. The Scottish attack has been one of the most exciting to watch over the last kind of 18 months, maybe a bit longer. But they didn't really get a chance to fire a proper shot today, as is indicated by the 18 points to 3 scoreline. But, yeah, key event stats coming up, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on this one. A little bit of pressure on the Scots early. They knock on a kickoff. They get charged down, so the Springboks are trying to make their lives miserable. Maybe a little bit living on the edge too much from South Africa. Well, like Jesse Kriel put in a real upright tackle on, I think it was Dempsey. It was very close to like face on face. Had a bit of a heart in my mouth moment because I don't want to see red cards in the first few minutes. But he was fine. But yeah, some intent shown early from the South Africans. And Scotland, interestingly, going for long line-out throws. Like, well long. Like, they clearly didn't want to contest the kind of regular line-out space with South Africa, because South Africa is very good at disrupting line-out. Scotland going long, but the execution there is difficult, and they mucked up a couple of them. They had a couple of chances. One was Kitshoff offside. Scotland chance for an attacking line-out. They mucked it up, and then they had one not long later where they had another good attacking chance. I think it might have been from South Africa knock on. But anyway, that would have been a scrum, so it wouldn't have been that. But yeah, they had a couple of line-out options that just didn't click. I get the intent, but the execution just wasn't quite there. And yeah, South Africa kind of intent to like just drop high balls just behind the Scottish, well, between the Scottish defensive line, behind the defenders, and then ahead of the back three, just to make that awkward space where the fullback's got to run onto it at pace and has got to make a really quick decision. So, yeah, kind of real proper World Cup play. Both sides, trying something to make the others a wee bit uncomfortable. And the South Africans were clearly trying to put some line speed on to disrupt Finn Russell because, that guy's a magician. You don't want him to have the time to do what he can do. So it was clearly a thing to try and disrupt him as well. South Africa had the first chance to shoot for goal when they won a scrum penalty, but Libbok's kick goes wide. And if there's one negative about this for the South Africans, it'll be that the goal kickings didn't look convincing. Faf de Klerk had to take over the goal kicking after a while. Like after Libbok had a great shift with the boot not that long ago. Didn't find his kicking form with this one, sadly. So a little bit hit and miss. I mean, they got it a little while later when Finn Russell gave away a deliberate knock-on penalty, but still, you would like to get it the first time. So 3-0 early to South Africa. There's a bit of handbags when Allende gets tackled into touch, and a hilarious moment where it's like Cheslin, Kolbe, and Darcy Graham grabbing each other by the neck, like two of the littlest guys on the field. Gardner gives them all a lecture, and there's a weird moment where the Marx wins a penalty at the breakdown, and Rusty Erasmus has got like these signals where he can, I guess that's like light signals to choose what option they're going for. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Did anyone else see that? Opt for the yellow seems to be opt for the post. So they got that one. 6 points to 0 to South Africa. Bad news for South Africa though is Etzebeth goes off. I thought it was initially from maybe falling awkwardly at a line out, but the South African commentary team I had said it's a shoulder, so fingers crossed he's all right because he's a massive part of the Springboks game plan, and 25 minutes is well short of what we usually see from him. So, Snyman came on and played bloody well with the offloading game, but still, Etzebeth you would rather have on. Scotland continue with the long lineouts. South Africa at one point, like their line speed almost cost them because they shoot up. Kriel tries to go for the intercept, but he misses it. So Graham is like tearing down across field, but it was Libbok. He may not have had his kicking boots on, but he managed to kind of shut down that Scottish attack, which was the first real threatening one of the Scots from the half, and that's around about half an hour in. But from the flip side, Scotland shut down South Africa's first real driving maul early on, 33 minutes is not that early, but yeah, they did well to shut it down. So the South Africans shutting down the Scottish outside backs, which was pleasing, and the Scots shutting down that big South African maul, pleasing from them. And then the Scots even started to win some scrum penalties. Kind of uncharacteristic. Not many teams do that against the Springboks. So they managed to get 3 points from it right before half-time. Russell kicked a pretty long penalty. 6-3 at half-time. It's a World Cup game, man. It's tight. Run meters are 228 to 87. So, yeah, Scotland haven't had a lot of running play. South Africa's had 54% possession, 61% territory. It's a clean break each, so pretty tight. South Africa's conceded a couple of scrum penalties. Scotland's lost 2 lineouts. So, yeah, both sides with some work-ons in the second half. You feel like South Africa got the scrum work on pretty well sorted because their scrum came out angry in the second half. And the Scottish attack just, whatever they said at halftime didn't work because it looked more flustered. The second half starts with Finn Russell taking the ball into contact and then trying a miracle offload to Xander Fagerson, the tight head prop. This doesn't seem like a wise play. It's like a less than a 50-50 play anyway. Doesn't seem great. So from that knock on, it's a scrum. From that scrum, South Africa win a penalty. South Africa opt for a long shot at goal. It doesn't even get close. So I'm talking about the goal kicking about not being great. But it's not long later they get the first try of the game. Pieter-Steph, the Toit man, ends up getting driven over by his teammates. He wins the initial contact from close range with Tuipulotu. It's a bit of a mismatch in size. And he's driven over. So Pieter-Steph's having a great run of form recently. But, that try goes all the way back to some attacking play where South Africa had to keep the ball in the field of play. Faf de Klerk just managed. Kolisi went close to the sideline. Faf had to chuck it between his legs. There was a fair bit of play between then and the try. But, yeah, it was just good enterprising play to kind of want to play, to keep the momentum going. And then, South African defence, man, just kept making the Scottish attack look a bit confused. Normally if I compared an attack to the All Blacks attack, it'd be a compliment. But do you remember how the other day the All Blacks looked just befuddled against France? That's a bit how Scotland looked, which is uncharacteristic. Scotland's attack is usually very sharp. Eventually, as they kind of hesitate, the South African forwards, again, with that physicality, drive over a ruck. It is a turnover. And then while the Scottish guys get pinged for offside, it's advantage. Manie Libbok wasn't kicking him from the tee, but that kick for Arendse up the field was pinpoint. It was beautiful. Arendse takes it full tilt, and he goes over for a try. It's 18 points to 3. The previous try's conversion missed, but Faf takes over the kicking and manages to slot that one. So 18-3, that's the final scoring of the game. We've still got half an hour to go. There will be no more scoring. So Scotland had to go for touch. They are chasing the game at that point, 52 minutes. Mbonambi conceded a penalty at the breakdown, but then their line-out just broke down again. It just seemed confused. They didn't really jump. And then South Africa knocked it on from the loose ball, and that led to a scrum. The scrum leads to a South African penalty, so it's a pretty easy exit for them. Scotland replaced the front row in response to conceding that scrum penalty, but from the next scrum, conceded a penalty. Interestingly, the South Africans went for the 3, which was an interesting call at 18-3. I feel like you can chase the bonus point. They had a fair bit of momentum, but they missed the kick, so it's a missed opportunity. Scotland kicked a 50-22, which was a good bit of field position. Another chance to get yourself back in the game. You're not dead and buried. You're behind. You got a chance. They scored like a spectator's try where they tried to take a quick line out, but the ref was like, it's the wrong ball and you're not on the right mark. So, they had a proper chance in South Africa's 22. Their attack starts going backwards. Kolisi wins a turnover on his 3rd attempt. He was close the first 2 times. He gets it done. So the South African defence, man, is looking pretty comfortable. They did concede a penalty at the breakdown on 67 minutes, South Africa, but then Scotland lost their own line out. Then South Africa knocked it on. It got a bit loose, but guess how does it end? It ends in a South African scrum penalty. Yeah, it's a tough one if you're a Scottish fan watching your side. I've seen my teams in the past, especially my Blues and Super Rugby, get pummeled at scrum time, and it's not a fun watch, but you would have been loving it if you're a South African fan. Weird moment, like towards the end of the game when the game's realistically dead and buried, where Scotland win a turnover, and I'm thinking, right, here's your chance to maybe hit him on the break, but Redpath just hoops it up the field. I think he was going for a 50-22, but I don't know, man. I was hoping for a bit of that kind of Scottish magic with the back three, but yeah, not doing. There's a weird moment where Angus Gardner starts yelling at Bongi and Mbonambi not to come in and talk to him about the play that's been going on before he realises that Bongi's the captain now that Kolisi's off, and he apologises profusely, but that was just a bit of a interesting moment. I get why the ref doesn't want players who aren't the captain talking to him, but yeah, he was the captain. Kolbe did have a big line break before full time. He went between Nell and Richie, but Finn Russell with a good tackle on him. And then Grant Williams, we talked about him in the preview with that burster's pace of his. He was pretty much a Finn Russell ankle tap away from scoring a try from a mucked up line out in South Africa's own 22. It was messy, and he just heads up play, gassed it, but Finn Russell with the ankle tap shut it down. So, yeah, the game finishes on a Scottish line-out error, which is maybe kind of fitting because nothing really got going for the Scots in this one. Run meters finish 540 to 225, and I looked it up. That's the lowest the Scots have had in run meters since they went to Argentina back in 2022, which was a mid-year game, so it's a long time. Scotland usually crank through a lot more run meters than that. Possession 54 to South Africa, territory 59 to South Africa, they controlled that. Clean breaks 4-3 is actually pretty even. Turnovers conceded 18-13, so South Africa did drop a little bit of ball, but they had more ball. Their lineouts 11 from 12, whereas Scotland is 13 from 17, so missed chances. Penalty count 7-10, which is kind of low. 5 of those penalties from Scotland are the props, which speaks to the scrum dominance in the second half from South Africa. Individuals, man. I mean, Dempsey, 49 metres, 2 defenders beaten, 11 from 11 tackles, solid shift at the back, but the Scottish forwards largely didn't crank through any metres. The Scottish midfield combined for 8 metres, when Allende got 70 going the other way. It's a bit of a contrast. Duan van der Merwe had 32 metres and 3 defenders beaten. When he averages this year like almost 100 metres and like 10 defenders beaten or something stupid, so he was kept pretty quiet, man. Kolbe, 115 metres, 2 clean breaks, 4 defenders beaten. Wiese, 38 metres, 4 defenders beaten. Mostert, 11 from 12 tackles. Allende, 6 defenders beaten alongside those 70 metres. So, yeah, South Africa got the scrum right. Scotland line out, not flash, and their attack just not allowed to click. Yeah, big performance from South Africa. South Africa have got Romania next, who conceded a whole lot of points in their game against Ireland. So, yeah, look out Romania based on that one. Perhaps expect the South Africans to make a few changes. And Scotland have got a bit of a wait before they play Tonga towards the end of the month. So, yeah, we'll see how things go. You guys let us know your thoughts on the game. Pretty convincing in the end. Scotland didn't really fire a shot, which is disappointing, but just like my All Blacks, not out of it yet. But anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.